Today, once again, we're going to introduce a film because it's been a while since both movies and series have hit a slump. No new news is happening in the cinema. That's why we're going to review old cinema films. This particular video is dedicated to films that all have a psychological theme, now in different styles. Some are psychological thrillers. Some are psychological dramas. In our list, we have both very famous films and some lesser-known ones. Of course, I tried to exclude very famous films like Inception and Black Swan from our list. The introductions are spoiler-free and we won't waste time. Let's get to the introductions. The first movie I want to introduce to you is Following. This film was made by someone who not only knows how to play with time, but also knows how to play with people's minds, and that is Christopher Nolan. However, this film is less known than his other movies because it's the first film he made. It's not more than 110 minutes long and only cost $6,000 to make. The film is a product of 1998. It will be interesting for you to know where Christopher Nolan started his career. He also wrote the screenplay for this film while he was studying at university. The story of the film is about a writer, which means Christopher Nolan himself, when he was a writer, wrote a story about a writer who starts following people to find suitable characters for his story. On different streets, he spends a whole day and follows them, observing their lives to see what habits they have. Whether they are good or bad, it becomes a habit for him. He just likes to watch people until one day by chance he encounters a strange subject and a new person enters his life. This film, with the simplest elements you can imagine, can create situations that engage the viewer's mind. Nolan made this during his university studies, and the production process took a year. Why? Because they only filmed on weekends, meaning they shot just one sequence per week. All the actors in the film are his friends, and they worked on this film during their free time. It took the entire year of 97 to make this simple film, and in 98, when it was released, it grossed $126,000 in cinemas. It was under his name that Nolan tactfully and scientifically managed it. Psychological crime films are their first choice for entertainment. The film Identity is one such movie where you guess 3 or 4 times during the film what the ending might be, but as the film progresses, you realize your guesses were wrong. It features good actors like Alfred, Moreno, and John Cusack star in it, directed by James Mangold, who you might know from the film Logan. The movie was released in 2003. Now, what's the story? The story is about several people whose narratives are told in parallel. Due to a torrential storm, they are all forced to take refuge in an inn because the floodwaters have washed away all the roads. The people are completely different from each other and have no connection. For example, one is a driver, another is a celebrity, one is a family with a young boy, one is an attractive woman, and another is a prisoner sentenced to death for murder, accompanied by a police officer who is transferring him. They all come together to this inn, but during the night, as the torrential rain continues one by one, the people there start. As the story progresses, it becomes stranger, like who is this killer that is murdering them? Throughout the film, you will have a lot of questions about what exactly is happening in the movie, and the ending will be something you absolutely cannot guess who they are and where. Again, this crime film that I want to introduce to you is called Primal Fear, which I had introduced on the channel about a year ago. It features good actors like Edward Norton and Richard Gere. In 1997, and generally in the 90s, many well-crafted crime films were made. Now, the story of this film is set in Utah, where a teenage boy is imprisoned for the alleged murder of a priest. The role of the boy is played by Edward Norton. Now, a lawyer decides to defend this helpless young man in court. As the story progresses, the truth behind this murder gradually becomes clearer. This is one of those films where you, as the audience, constantly feel like you are getting closer to uncovering the truth. The film has also received a very good rating of 7.7 on IMDb, and Edward Norton won an award for his performance in this film. He won the Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor and also received an Oscar nomination. But pay attention to the fact that many scenes in this film take place in the courtroom because the truth is gradually being uncovered, and if you're someone who doesn't have the patience for a lot of dialogue, this film might be boring for you.
You fucking killed him!
No! What the hell you want from me now? Quit your crying, I can't understand a goddamn word you're saying!
I want to introduce you to one of those films where, when it ends, you say,
Huh?
It's one of those films that, at first glance, you can't really understand what happened. You need to do some research, listen to the director's own talks, and only then will you start to grasp some things. The first one might seem strange to you. It's an anime that, when it was released, its style of psychological imagery presentation completely changed cinema. The anime Perfect Blue, from which the film Black Swan has taken many of its scenes, is based on this very anime. When you watch the anime, you'll be amazed at how much Black Swan resembles it. Well, the film Black Swan was made by Aronofsky, who also has another famous film, Requiem for a Dream. When he wanted to make that film, he actually had to go and buy the adaptation rights from this anime to be able to use parts of it in his own film. The anime is quite old, from 1997, and it's called Perfect Blue. It's about a singer who is very popular and has a lot of fans. Essentially a celebrity who dominates the entire media landscape of the country. Then, this singer decides to become an actress and in fact chooses controversial roles for her first acting experiences. This causes some of her die-hard fans to become upset, to the point where she even receives threatening letters on the internet. Things get worse when someone is murdered behind the scenes of one of her films, and the girl experiences a mental breakdown. At some points, you even lose the boundary between reality and illusion in the film, making it difficult to follow the rest of the story. The director himself has said that they wanted to draw the audience into the dark corridor of the twisted illusions of a person suffering from a mental illness with this film. One of the captivating films is Donnie Darko. In this film, Jake Gyllenhaal acts alongside his sister, Maggie Gyllenhaal. Drew Barrymore and Patrick Swayze are also among the cast. The film is a product of 2001, where Jake Gyllenhaal is quite young. The story takes place in the 1980s and revolves around a very lonely and introverted boy who is none other than Donnie Darko himself. One night, after he argues with his mother, he hears a strange sound in his bed and sees a monstrous 2-meter-tall rabbit, who comes and tells him that the world will end in 28 days, 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 12 seconds. From that night on, this boy keeps seeing this monstrous creature in different conditions, and the countdown to the end of the world keeps decreasing. The film Donnie Darko not only has a complex story, but also explores the concept of the human psyche and plays with the concept of time, which undergoes changes in the film. The film has a very good rating of 8, and Rotten Tomatoes also gives it a score of 8. The next two films I want to introduce to you have a very calm atmosphere, focusing more on human emotions and psychological drama. The first one is The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Emma Watson, Ezra Miller, and Paul Rudd star in this film. It is known as one of the most melancholic films made in the coming-of-age subgenre. The film's theme revolves around topics like suicide, depression, and post-traumatic anxiety. It encapsulates all the psychological pressures that a teenager might face. The story follows several parallel lines, one of the main ones being the storyline of a young man named Charlie, who is very introverted and reserved. He has just entered high school, doesn't have many friends, and is counting down the moments until his high school years are over. He is eager to enter university, but his life circumstances change when he meets a girl named Sam. The feature of this film is that the more the story progresses, the more you empathize with the main character. You see how his wrong choices ruin his life, or how his right choices lead to success. This film has a very good score of 7.9 on IMDb and 85 on Rotten Tomatoes. If you are someone who enjoys coming-of-age films and slow-paced movies that are popular, and you have no problem with romance, watch this film. Otherwise, it might be boring for you. The movie that can be considered a psychological drama is a very famous and well-known film, meaning the movie Her, with the brilliant performance of Joaquin Phoenix. Even if you haven't seen the movie itself, you've probably seen its clips on social media. Amy Adams, Rooney Mara, and Scarlett Johansson are also among the other actors in this film. Spike Jonze is the director of this film, who also directed another psychological film called Being John Malkovich. He also made Adaptation, which is another psychological film. This film of his is from 2013. Now, the interesting part is that the story takes place in 2025, and they were able to predict the future very well. Artificial intelligence has advanced tremendously by this year, and the story revolves around a man who is an introverted recluse who gradually falls in love with the intelligent operating system of his computer, which is voiced by A. Johansson. Now, why does he fall in love with it? Because this artificial intelligence has been developed in such a way that it can understand human emotions and feelings. This leads to romantic conversations forming between the man and the AI, taking this man's life into a new phase. The film also has very interesting messages depicting the loneliness of modern humans. It shows that if people understand each other's emotions, they can easily change each other's lives. In general, the film explores various topics such as philosophy, the meaning of life, love, and many other things. An important point about this film is that its screenplay has a new form, which led it to win the Oscar for Best Screenplay in 2014. The soundtrack also received a very good score of 8 from the Burton number 925. From the Metacritic number 921, it ranks among the top. An interesting fact about this film is that when they wanted to make it in 2013, because they wanted to depict America in 2025, they went to Shanghai, China to film, as China was considered the future version of America. The next two films I want to introduce are in the metaphysical genre, both having a metaphorical form. The first one is made by Lanthimos, a director I don't need to introduce anymore. He's the director of the film The Favorite, and I've previously introduced his film The Lobster on the channel. Now I want to introduce his film The Killing of a Sacred Deer. Well, if you're familiar with this director's style, not everyone enjoys watching his films. Truly, if you are into Lanthimos' style, you should watch this film. Especially if you have seen The Lobster and enjoyed it, you should definitely watch this film. However, if you didn't like The Lobster, there's a very high chance you won't like this film either. Like other films by Lanthimos, it features some very good stars. Nicole Kidman, Colin Farrell, and Barry Keoghan are among the actors in this film. The style of this director is such that he conveys the message of his film. with a lot of exaggeration. Now, what is the message of this film that it wants to convey? It suggests that whatever people do in this world comes back to them. We don't leave this world without facing consequences. This theme is presented with a lot of exaggeration. We see the story of a heart surgeon whose patient died under his care some time ago. Now the child of that patient has said that they want to become a surgeon themselves, and because of this, the doctor in our story faces consequences. Hussein brings this boy to the hospital to talk to him a bit, to discuss medical matters. Then, one by one, each member of this doctor's family starts getting sick, and they all end up on their deathbeds. This film won the award for Best Screenplay at the Cannes Film Festival in 2017. The last two on our list are very well-known movies, and I'd be surprised if you haven't seen them. The first one is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Jack Nicholson is the star of this movie. The director of this movie is someone whose Oscar-winning films, like Amadeus, you might have seen in the past. The story of the film revolves around a person named Patrick, who is imprisoned for having a sexual relationship with a girl under 18. Then, because Patrick didn't want to endure prison, he pretended to be insane. Therefore, the court, wanting to ensure whether he was truly insane, sent him to a mental hospital for observation. Now, this energetic character, upon entering the mental hospital, changes the course of life for all the patients. In the film, the mental hospital is a metaphor for society, and the supervisory style within the hospital is a metaphor for how oppression can impact people's lives. This film was made in 1977, and the year it was released, it was the most important film of the year. At the Oscars, it won the Oscar for Best Actor, Best Actress, as well as Best Screenplay, Best Director, and it even won the most important award, which is the Best Picture Award, totaling 5 awards. The main film won, and it received a very good rating of 8.7 from the box office and a score of 90 from critics. The last film on our list is the very famous and well-known A Beautiful Mind, a movie that won the Oscar for Best Picture in 2001. Russell Crowe and Jennifer Connelly are the stars of this film, and it was directed very well by Ron Howard, who is generally known for making well-crafted films. For example, you might have seen Cinderella Man from this director. This film is a biographical one and in the genre of cognitive drama. It tells the story of the life of John Nash, a mathematician who won the Nobel Prize in Economics. John Nash had an extraordinary ability to see relationships between shapes and numbers, and he could find patterns among numbers in his mind. At the beginning of the film, we see this person's student life until gradually, strange people enter the life of this mathematical genius, from CIA agents to Russian assassins. As the story progresses, his life becomes stranger and stranger. This film won 5 Best Actor awards for Russell Crowe. It also has a very beautiful and assured soundtrack, and it received a very good score of 8.8 on IMDb. Well, friends, that's it for today's video. I hope it was useful for you. If you liked this video, don't forget to like it. Be sure to tell us in the comments which of these films you've seen and share your thoughts about them. If this video was to your liking, don't forget to like it, and until the next production, goodbye.